All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel, where we bring you CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs all over the world. I'm super excited. Now we have someone from England, and we were just talking off camera that she was in Paris, Paris, and it's really cool. Getting to meet so many people. Once again, it came from the app of Clubhouse. So I've been using Clubhouse to just pluck out some incredible people around the world. And today we have Tech for Non-Techies CEO founder, Sofia. So welcome to the show, Go for CEO. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, John, for having me here. And it's your energy that draws people to you. And this is what your listeners appreciate about you. This is what I heard on Clubhouse. It's just, you've got this sunny energy. And when I first heard your voice on Clubhouse, things were pretty miserable. It was 2021. I think it was like Q2 when everybody was just wondering, what on earth is happening with business? What's happening with my life? Will I ever, have any fun ever again? And so hearing somebody who has a lot of positive energy, it was literally like, we were all thirsty for it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, my acronym is John the Bomb, right? So building others means business, BOMB. So I forget to say it on my YouTube channel, but thank you. I appreciate the compliments, and certainly, yeah. I mean, that's the point, is to be able to hopefully be on that app and cultivate, great relationships, as we were talking offline, and then hopefully bring them onto, either podcasts or YouTubes or business collaborations, all the new words for 2022, which we currently are. So happy New Year, everyone. So if you go ahead and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment for Sofia, we're going to have a great conversation about her incredible company and what she's really been able to develop. So Sofia, we'd love to start with initially just kind of a little bit of the background of you and how you started to think about this idea and what it really took to launch Tech for Non-Techies. So take it away.
Well, Tech for Non-Techies was actually an accident, and was actually completely born out of me not knowing what on earth I was doing. So it's maybe it's kind of the way not to do things, but you can be the judge of that. So I don't have a technical background. I studied political science as my first degree, and then I worked in the media, and then I worked in private equity in London. And when I was working in private equity, when I was first going for a job in private equity, I thought it was going to be amazing, but then I got it and I started working there, and it was really boring. It was really dull, and I just thought, okay, I want to get out of here. So anyway, long story short, I did my MBA at Chicago Booth, and that's where I thought, okay, what I really want to do with my life is I want to launch a tech startup, make it, really, really big, and be this really successful tech founder. I thought, brilliant, we've done all these case studies. I'm at one of the best business schools in the world. I worked in private equity. I can do this. And so with this kind of, the confidence you have before you've done anything, before you know how hard it's going to be, actually managed to convince a team to work with me. God knows how, I think it was just enthusiasm. And we got through Chicago Booth New Venture Challenge, which is one of the top accelerators in the US. It's where Grubhub came from and where Braintree came from. And with this, I raised some money and basically was like, okay, now we're going to build a product. The problem was, as I mentioned, I didn't work in tech. So I'm a smart person, but I didn't know my back end from my front end. I mean, I didn't know what those things were. And neither did anybody else on my team, because we were all MBA people. And I mean, some of you might have opinions about MBAs, and they're all correct. Basically, MBAs think that we know everything, and then we found out that actually we didn't. And this is when things started getting really difficult, because I actually did manage to get a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, to work with me. And I realized we were speaking different languages, because he would say words that I didn't know, like I literally didn't understand. So it was tech jargon. Like he would talk about developing on Ruby on Rails, and I think, what the hell is this? But I'm the boss, right? So I can't say like, I don't know what any of these people are talking about. So I'd go and Google things secretly. But for anybody who's tried to Google tech jargon, like if you try to Google an API, you will get application programming interface. Like, does that clarify anything for you? No. So I was Googling all these tech terms, and it was very difficult. Anyway, as I was building my first tech business, I actually ended up learning on the job. So we did, get apps out, we created algorithms, we actually scaled our audience. But I then started writing for Forbes about my journey as a founder. And I thought, okay, all the people, all the tech bros from Silicon Valley are saying, if you're a non-technical founder, you need to learn to code. But I thought, do you? And so I started interviewing non-technical founders or successful people in tech who are not technical. So not the Harvard dropouts with computer science, unfinished degrees, not those guys, but the people who are succeeding in tech as non-techies. And basically I was saying to them, what do you do? What did you have to learn? Like, tell me what I'm supposed to do when I go to work. And essentially I was using Forbes to get free consulting from very successful people. And it worked. So I learned what I needed to do. I learned how to connect technology strategy to business strategy. Because as the leader, as you know, John, you're not supposed to do everything yourself. You have to hire a team. You have to set the right targets. You have to make sure that everybody's singing of the same hymn sheet. But you're not supposed to actually understand all the minutiae of what the developers are doing. Because if that's what you're doing, you literally don't have the time or the headspace to talk to investors or to individuals. Anyway, so as I was writing Forbes, I realized that the most popular articles I was writing were articles about non-technical founders and articles about what I've learned that you need to learn as a non-technical person who wants to build a tech business. So those articles ended up becoming a podcast. Tech for Non-Techies exists as a podcast now. And then essentially those, all that free content, people started asking me, to give talks. And then the talks became courses, and Tech for Non-Techies as a company essentially was born when one of the top business schools asked me to teach. So it was London Business School, my first ever business school client. And I've got a few others now, including Oxford. And that's how Tech for Non-Techies started. It was basically me not knowing what I was supposed to do.
Well, I love that journey, right? And you shared such an insight. When education meets, desire, right? And then be able to then connect the dots. And you were smart enough to say, hey, look, if I don't know, then let me reach out to some of the people that do know and have already done it, right? So we talked about that, we talk about it on our website on Go for CEO that, it's learn from people that already have been where you want to be, right? So, and that's the shortcut. A lot of people don't do that. They hit their head against the wall and they're like, all right, let me try that again. So interesting stuff. So tell us then, okay, so you obviously formed this team. You've got some great people on. You're starting to really interview some of these people that, can give you some great insight. What are 2 or 3 things that you're doing then to formulate, I guess, the MVP perspective, right? Like, what are you bringing to the market? What is it that ultimately gets started, as a tool out there that you're selling?
So the way it started was literally a workshop called the Non-Technical Founders Introduction to Tech. And that was literally a workshop at my mother's house. And now it is a course that I've taught at London Business School 3 years in a row. I've taught it at Oxford University, and I'm in negotiations to teach it at some of the leading business schools now in the US as well. So it started, as I mentioned, with those articles and then just short talks. Literally, I was giving talks on what non-technical founders really need to know about tech. I was giving them, places like WeWork and startup hubs. And I was just doing a 90-minute session. And it was basically the stuff that I'd learned. I just put some slides together. And first there were just free sessions. But then people kept on coming up. And I thought, what happens if I ask them for money? And business 101, that you get an MBA, that was the kind of smart thing you come up with. and people were paying me, and I thought, oh, this is good. And then people were saying this 90-minute session was really good, but do you have more? And I thought, well, I know more, I can make more. So I created a day-long workshop. And then out of that, as I said, a business school asked me to teach them. And it was actually during lockdown that I was about to come back for the second year. But they said, well, our campus is closed, so can you do it online? I thought, yeah, okay. I mean, we're all on Zoom, right? And that's when I thought, well, if I'm putting this content online for them, why don't I literally just start the website tech.non-techies.co
Hmm.
and take everything that I already have and package it into an online course where you don't have to go to a top business school, pay $200,000 and get a GMAT. You can literally just go to the website and buy the online course. And I didn't have any knowledge of, online courses apart from having taken them. But, it's not that hard to make. And I already knew that demand was there. And I think for your listeners, when you're thinking about MVPs, the story that I've just talked you through is actually the story that I, would take my clients and my students through, even when you do want to build something much more technical. Because essentially, the first thing that you want to do is you want to test the idea in the simplest, cheapest way. So, in my case, I was doing a free event. Would people go to a free event? Yes, they would. Then I put in a bit of friction. Would people go to that event if they needed to pay $20 to go to this event? Yes, they would. Actually, then demand didn't fall. So then next thing, you make that, you add a bit more. So you make your MVP, you make your product a bit more, a bit less simple. So that was a workshop, charged a bit more. And essentially, I kept on adding things as I was seeing more and more demand. And so by the time I actually launched an online course, not only did I have a bunch of testimonials, I was already teaching at a good school, and I already responded to a lot of the questions that I had with students. And again, this is what you need to know whether you want to launch an app or you want to launch any kind of business. First, you really want to be very, very close to the customers. So literally in my first ever workshop, it was in my mother's living room and there were 6 people literally on a Saturday. And I remember thinking, this is going to be terrible. They're all going to hate me. And I remember picturing that people were going to walk out of my mother's apartment and slam the door and say, this is the worst workshop I'd ever gone to. And I remember thinking, maybe they'll throw things at me. I mean, I don't know. I literally picture some kind of like angry mom being like, trying to kill me for this workshop, which didn't happen. But luckily, and actually one of the people from that workshop, from that very first workshop, she used the information that I taught her to raise funding for her first ever app. And now actually her product is out. It's called Hey Spanish. She teaches Spanish to little kids. And once you can see that what you are doing has resonance with customers, and once you also actually like not only resonance but also results, like because if you have all this resonance but your customers aren't getting results, that means you're super good at selling and you're really, really charismatic, but you're actually not very good at what you do. And then from as soon as the online course was launched, again, it's just been a process of iteration. First, it was, changing the pricing structure, experimenting with advertising, also seeing who is coming to the courses. I started seeing that actually it's not only founders, but people who want to invest in tech businesses. So people who want to be angel investors, but maybe maybe they made their money through real estate. That is a complicated field, but it is not tech investing. Now they want to invest in tech startups, but they don't know anything. And so they, and we all heard about like Elizabeth Holmes at Theranos now. So they don't want to get fleeced. And again, as I started seeing who's taking the course and why they're taking it, I started creating different course offerings for people who want to transition into tech, people who want to invest in tech. But I was only doing it based on the demand that was already there, as opposed to chasing people and being like, hey, I got this stuff. You might not want it, but if I give you like a 75% discount, will you want it? Because if somebody just doesn't want it at all, they don't want it for free. Like there's a bunch of free stuff that I don't need.
No, that's incredible. What you just went through is so interesting, right? As far as the value ladder and how you started to depict of like, hey, from free to 20, from 20 to other value, from other value to other multiple products in different scenarios, right? So really great stuff there. The last couple minutes, Go for CEO community, if you want to replay that, it was a real school on how to kind of go up that value ladder. So let's talk a little bit about, you've obviously, you've developed these areas of business, right? And it was intentional and unintentional with some of the interviews and the things that you were doing with the non-tech founders. So give us a little bit of a taste then. You left off at the very end there of how you weren't needing to chase people, but people were really coming to you, right? So what is a marketing plan that you used to be able to then now promote these now established, webinars and tools and things that you started having in the marketplace?
Well, I'll tell you all the things that I tried and what worked and what didn't. So
Okay.
first, when this was just a side hustle and I was kind of just doing it for enjoyment and experimentation, literally it started with a meetup group. And for all of your listeners who are interested, if you're an expert in a topic and you want to host events, literally you can start a meetup group. So I run 3 meetup groups now, and they're all called TechnoTechies. So TechnoTechies, there's one in London, one in Chicago, and one in New York. So those generally, when we could travel, were the places that I was going to. And Meetup is a really, really great way to grow your visibility. There's a subscription, but it's like $70 for 6 months. So, it's not going to kill you. And so first I was doing that, and people were coming to that. And that's how literally I started giving the first talks and basically charging the first amount of money. But then when I decided to really focus on this as a company, I was thinking, okay, well, what the right thing to do, I thought, is going to be to do some Facebook advertising. So I actually decided to invest in Facebook ads, and I ran Facebook ads for about a year, and I worked with 2 different Facebook ad strategists, and I switched them off after a year because although they were definitely getting me customers, I found that the best customers, the people who, frankly, the people who I really liked working with, and also the people who had the biggest customer lifetime value, they were not coming through advertising. And yet I was paying Mark Zuckerberg a fortune, and he has enough money. So I don't want to give him any more. But also, if you do Facebook ads, you're paying Facebook, but you're also paying somebody to run your ads. And in general, the kind of smart, sophisticated audience that I was looking for, they didn't really want to be targeted by Facebook. So for example, I mentioned I had a column in Forbes for 3 years. People were reading my column and then going to TechnoTechies. I also wrote for the Financial Times, and that even if people don't necessarily come through that article because it's about a different topic, once people see that this is what you're doing, they generally follow you. They're interested in what you have to say. And so I saw that for me, the best customers, the people I love working with, and the people who are also taking themselves seriously, they are the people who are coming through articles that I've written or talks that I've done or podcasts that I've done. So it's earned media in my case rather than paid media. But it took me literally a year and thousands of dollars to finally come to that decision, and a sales coach to basically say, come on, we should stop it.
Hey, sometimes it takes that extra pair of eyes. So interesting that you brought up branding, in my opinion here. It's like, how did you start to develop that part of it? Even if maybe you didn't think of it as that's what you were doing, did you feel like you were really putting a brand out there and starting to cultivate that brand perception?
Well, I would say that actually the brand started with me. And I have been really interested in personal branding for a long time. But actually, John, what I've really been interested in is propaganda, because basically molding people's perceptions to what you want them to think. I think it's fascinating. Unfortunately, I am not evil, so I have to use my powers for good. But, I mean, don't you think it would be so much fun to be an evil genius, like on a spaceship with a bald cat, but like in a monocle. But I actually, when I was studying political science, I was really interested in how political regimes and dictatorships basically use propaganda to get their people to do things. Because yes, you can get people to do things if you point a gun at them, but it's far more effective if you get people to actually believe in your regime. And so this is something I was really fascinated in. And so in my the first job that I worked in, it was financial PR. So I was representing some of the world's largest companies to the financial press and the financial markets. And that's all about perception. So you have an equity analyst who will call you up and they'll talk about, a listed company's results. And you don't lie about the results, but you say, well, yes, profits were down this quarter, but this is because we're making all of these investments in XYZ, I don't know, oil wells at the time. And so actually this should be reflected in the equity price. So like, we think that your recommendation is wrong because it doesn't reflect the future value of this company. And that's still presenting a case, which is completely different from lying. And when I was working at that job, I understood that the CEOs, and literally I was working with the CEOs of some of the largest companies in the world. And I saw that the CEOs who generally were better liked by the stock market and by the journalists were the people who really took their personal brand quite seriously. So the CEOs, and literally I'm talking about like Fortune 50, like the CEOs who were just like, okay, I'm just going to hire all of these professionals and then they will just do all the thing. And I actually hate speaking to external people. When something went wrong in that company, when the results weren't great or they had to let some people go, then they didn't have any goodwill built in kind of from the community to kind of be forgiven, to have a bit of cushioning. Whereas the CEOs who really kind of thought about their personal brand and invested in it and gave talks and explained what they're doing and talked about where they came from and their ethos, in general, they literally could raise more money, like literally bond investors like them. And when you see it at that level, I was thinking, oh, I gotta do this. Okay, I need to figure out how to do that too. So actually, from a very early stage, I was writing articles, and it took me probably about 10 years to actually write an op-ed for the Financial Times. Before that, like I remember I gave an interview to a website that sells vegan condoms. I was literally like, I was literally like, okay, if my target audience is on this website, I want to be there. And this is a very expensive vegan condom brand. So I was like, okay, these people are probably also Financial Times readers, but Financial Times readers need condoms too.
That's right.
And so by the time Non-Techies was launched, I had credibility with my personal brand. And so then, for things like Oxford, for example, Oxford University to hire me, I wasn't a complete unknown. Like, yes, they didn't actually know me, but once they Googled me, they thought, okay, this person is legit. But it took a lot of work, literally for years, to do this. So I'd say to your listeners, if you want to be an entrepreneur, but you don't have an idea, it's fine. First of all, ideas are a dime a dozen, as you know, John, but start working on kind of getting your personal brand out there. And not like Kim Kardashian, don't take selfies. That's not going to help you because that's not expertise. Like, show that you're an expert in something and basically show people that you're smart and that you know what you're talking about, because you are going to need that down the line to start your company, or if you want to raise money, or if you want to get another job. If people are going to Google you, and like we all Google each other now, people are going to Google you and they're going to Google your competitor. If there's a bunch of good, credible stuff about you, or even if you're just writing articles on LinkedIn about your expertise, then people think, oh, this person knows what they're talking about. And this other person, your competitor, maybe they know what they're talking about, but we're not sure. So wouldn't it be better to go for the sure thing?
What a what a total hack you just gave there. What awesome insight. Actually just one of my last interviews, a gentleman named Michael Giuliano, we were offline and talking about LinkedIn as an example. And he gave me some insights on some hacks for LinkedIn, and simplicity can be something that we kill, right? We want to be, oh, this has to be complex and stuff. But what you just talked about is a simple process. Like, share the knowledge that you have, build your personal brand, know that it's going to take a little bit of time, excuse me, but when it happens, you don't need to be selling yourself per se. People are coming to you, like you said. Oxford came to you and found you out. So really, really cool stuff. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I hope that the community really kind of sees that and listens and takes some good notes on that. So, one of the ways that we end our interviews is through the principle of CEO, right? So it's client experience, employee engagement, and operational excellence. So I know we touched on a couple things here, but I'd love to just get your value proposition on kind of the way you think of business and how you've developed it, and really that journey of the client experience. So in your opinion.
So actually something amazing happened literally just yesterday. So one of my clients launched her app onto the Apple App Store literally yesterday. So
Wow.
I can talk about her journey. So it's for pediatric dentistry. So if you've got kids and they have teeth, then download Good Checkup. It is created by a pediatric dentist. And basically, it's a lady who runs a dentist service in Florida. And she's a University of Chicago graduate, like I am. And that's how we ended up meeting. And during lockdowns, obviously during COVID, it was difficult, for her to see her patients. And what she was saying is that it's not necessary for her to actually go and poke around in a kid's mouth every single time. Yes, sometimes you do, but actually sometimes she doesn't need to do that. All she needs is some photos so she could tell the parents what to do.
Mm.
And so when she started working with me, so what she did is she joined the TechnoTechies community. She'd been listening to the TechnoTechies podcast for a while, and then she signed up to the Technical Founders course. And we also had a bit of coaching, because I think the course is great. It gives you all of the information that you need to know. So it teaches you the language of tech. It teaches you how to work with designers and developers and set them tasks, and how to hire the right people to make sure that you don't hire some shysters who take all your money and run away, because that happens quite a lot. But then we took all of that information that she was learning and essentially applied it to, okay, so how are you, Marilyn? What are you going to do today? Like, how are you going to apply it to your knowledge? And I'd love to take all of the credit, but obviously I can't, because it's her idea, it's her customer base, it's her effort, it's her investment. But literally her product is out this month, and I couldn't be more thrilled. And what I want to really emphasize there is that she identified the problem because she already has a business. So she already has her own dental practice. So she already has her own user base built in. So the first users of her app are literally going to be the people who can't get an appointment with her. So again, like when you are thinking about building something, don't think, okay, I don't know anything about this business. I don't know any potential users. I don't know anything, but I'm going to build this thing and then surely they will come. No, like build, understand the problem, have the customer base, even if it's a small one first, and then go from there.
I
So
love it.
so that's literally the customer journey. So check out Good Checkup if you have babies or if you have kids with teeth.
Good Checkup.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to check it out. I was trying to see if I could look it up, but I didn't find it instantaneous. I'm one of those non-techie guys, so so I'll need some help looking on the App Store. But awesome stuff. So look, the next one is E for employee engagement, and we could take it many different ways. If you have vendors, if you have subcontractors, if you have independent contractors, if you have a team that you built, like you talked about at the beginning of our journey here. So tell us what it is that you feel keeps people and your team engaged around you.
So I've worked with employees and I've worked with contractors and everybody. But honestly, I think with everybody that I've worked with is that I genuinely like them and they genuinely like me. So I only hire smart people. I only work with smart people. So in terms of intelligence and hard work ethic, I have very high standards. But to be honest, smart people wouldn't have it in any other way. So that's fine. So everybody feels kind of comfortable with that. But I honestly, I think in terms of corporates, I don't think I'm very employable, at least not anymore, because I want to, I want to kind of be my real self. I'm not saying bring everything to work, like don't tell everybody about like all of your nightmares and problems with your parents and all of that, because like that's a burden that you don't necessarily want to put on them. But like, for example, one of the things I love doing is like, I love dirty jokes.
Oh,
So
okay.
basically, there's a constant undercurrent of filth in our team. And I mean, it
That's
makes me,
awesome.
and also on the podcast, although my mom started listening to the podcast now, and I'm like, oh God, oh no, I'm going to get into trouble. But anyway, so the people who kind of come to a place where they can work, they can be intelligent, they can have results, and also they can make they can make filthy jokes like that works for them and that works for me. But also there are people to whom that's freaky, that's unprofessional, that's awful. Like, no, we're not going to do that. And that's also fine. So I do think that if if you're a leader, you don't want to burden your team with your problems, but you also do want to bring your quirks, because your quirks are going to attract the right people who like those quirks and who are like, oh, thank God, I don't have, like, I can let my freak flag fly too. So then you can all be freaks together.
I love it. I love it. I've got definitely that part of me. So it'd be a cool journey to be around you guys. So maybe offline we'll have to crack some jokes. So awesome stuff. So, you talked about this too, but I really want to get your perspective kind of just as a value add, scenario, the operation side, right? I think a lot of people can sell, right? Or can get their business out there and start moving money. But without a smooth operation, without really knowing the things that are standard operating procedures, as an example, you could fall quickly. So in your perspective, or coming from you, what is kind of the operation excellence that you bring with what you built?
So honestly, the first thing is, because most of us are doing work online now, is just automate as much as possible. And actually, you don't even need to buy fancy software, and you can use a lot of free stuff. So as I
Mm.
said, with TechnoTechies, the first things I ever did, when it was just a passion project, it's a meetup group. So with a meetup group, you can literally connect that to your PayPal account, and then so you can put up an event, you can even sell courses, and then put money into your PayPal account. And you could do the same with Eventbrite. And then, then I created a website that has much more fancy automation. But essentially, the first thing that I would do is try to do as much as possible in a free or very, very cheap way, but automate it. So because you don't want to do, and I think, in the US, for some reason, I think payments, like a lot of payments, are still done manually. But what you really don't want to do is, you don't want to mess around with people's payments. You just basically want to have that system. If somebody subscribes to you, you want to make sure that their money just debits their accounts regularly. Then the next thing that I would do is, I would start looking for an assistant. But also, when you're looking for an assistant, I just need you, like everybody who's going to be like, oh, I'll hire this VA for $20 an hour and then everything will be fine. If that happens to you, please write to me and tell me how you did it. because in general, that's not what's going to happen. So hiring operations help, it's possible, but you have to invest time in it, because you have to work with people. Well, first of all, you have to go through a lot of applications, and that's going to take your time. And then you have to give people trials, and then a lot of that is not going to work out. So yes, having operations help, having a VA or having an operations director, that's super, super important. But just be aware that finding that person is a job in itself. There are agencies who help you do that. I haven't yet had a good experience with one of these agencies. Maybe that's going to change. But in general, automation first, then find that person, but find the person to be your assistant, to essentially take out things like, a lot of the pitching. So for example, if you've been pitching for a little while yourself, then you can kind of understand who to pitch to, you can kind of understand the script, you can give that to an operations manager or a VA to do. But I do want people to be aware that there is going to be a gap between you knowing that you need to get this person and you can afford to get this person, and actually having the right person, like there is a really wide gap.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, you got to be patient with that, but they say what, slow to hire, fast to fire, right? Make those decisions in those scenarios, and everybody's got their own system and process, right? But really appreciate that. So really going through the Go for CEO dynamic of things, how we do things, and learning from different CEOs and founders like yourself is really awesome. So, really appreciate. I know that it took some time to get us kind of totally connected, from Twitter to Clubhouse to all these things and all the tools, and really appreciate you coming on, spending your time with us, and really giving a lot of value to the Go for CEO community. We'd love to reconnect in about 6 to 12 months. The purpose of the app is, or the podcast is really to bring on continually so that we can build hopefully a tribe behind you, your brand, and everything that you're about, and see the growth and complexity of how you move over the next few years. So we hope to have you on again. Okay, Sophia?
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you, John. I'd love that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, any parting words?
So I would say that when you feel like you just can't keep going, take a break, but then carry on going. This is the start of 2022, and I think we all thought that this was going to be party time and every COVID was going to be over, and you know what, it's not. But we can still do things, we can still build businesses, we can still build relationships, we can still carry on moving forward. So when you feel like giving up, have a nap instead, and then keep on going, because that's the only way you're going to get anywhere.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, take a break, just unplug, get away, do something to kind of relieve your stress in mind and heart, right? So, and then let's not forget, what are some great ways to connect with you that you'd like for the audience to maybe either leave a message on YouTube or on our podcast, but other ways to connect with you?
Oh, wonderful. Well, so there is the TechnoTechies podcast where you can learn a lot of useful stuff and also suffer my sense of humor. Then you can also get in touch with me at Sofia Matveeva at Twitter, or TechnoTechies on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or TechnoTechies on Instagram.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the Go for CEO channel. We're growing. We're over 105 plus videos. We've got some inventory. We're going to be shooting for 200 this year, and bringing back people like Sophia, who's a founder of Tech on Non-Techies. So exciting to have this community growing. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment. I'd love for Sophia to be able to get some comments back and some interaction, and we'll be on LinkedIn, Facebook, and some other social media. So thanks so much, Sophia. I really appreciate you having on.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.